Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The town of Riverton seemed tranquil to anyone who passed through its streets lit by twinkling streetlights. But behind this peaceful facade, racial and social tensions had been simmering for years. Residents were all too familiar with the injustices and abuses of power that could arise at any moment. Samantha Carter, 38, calmly stepped out of her car after a long day working in a civilian military program. A former Navy SEAL, decorated for her high-risk missions around the world, her gaze bore the serenity of a woman who had faced chaos and death without flinching. Her athletic build and confident gait revealed a discipline acquired through sacrifice and rigor. She was just about to head home when Officer Daniel Mitchell, a local police officer known for his arrogance and his tendency to judge before understanding, noticed her. He knew nothing about Samantha, nothing about her military background or her impeccable reputation. All he saw was a lone black woman, dressed simply, and he quickly assumed the worst. In a matter of seconds, an ordinary situation turned explosive. Mitchell took a step toward her, demanding to verify her identity. Samantha, true to her training, responded calmly, without raising her voice, explaining that she had nothing to hide. But Mitchell, blinded by his prejudices and confident in his authority, ignored her words. That evening, a simple walk would turn into a legal battle that would shake Riverton and reveal to the world the strength and courage of a black woman no one would have dared to underestimate. Samantha Carter walked calmly along the sidewalk lit by the streetlights of Riverton. The night was cool, and the wind rustled the leaves on the trees. She had just left a civilian training center where she supervised security missions for the military. Her mind was focused on her daily routine, nothing more. Suddenly, a siren blared behind her. A police car slammed on its brakes. Officer Daniel Mitchell, 32, known for his impulsiveness and arrogance, got out and approached her. "Good evening, miss. Can you explain to me what you're doing here so late?" Mitchell asked, his tone not inviting discussion. Samantha raised her hands, a small, calm smile on her face. "Good evening, officer. I'm just heading home from work. I finished my day at the security center." Mitchell frowned, looking suspicious. "That's funny, someone reported a robbery on this street, and you fit the description. I'll need your ID." Samantha took out her wallet and held out her ID. "Here's my license. I didn't steal anything and I don't understand why I'm a suspect." But Mitchell wouldn't listen. His mind was already convinced she was lying. "Not so fast. You'll come with me to the station to verify this information." Before she could protest further, Mitchell grabbed her arm. Samantha, trained to react quickly but without violence, remained calm. She allowed herself to be guided toward the police car, knowing that any impulsive reaction would only make the situation worse. Passers-by stopped, some whispering, others filming the scene with their phones. Samantha knew this arrest would go beyond a simple police check. She already felt that the battle for her reputation and dignity had begun. In the car, Mitchell was talking on the radio to report his arrest, exaggerating the seriousness of the situation. Samantha, silent, was already thinking about how she would turn this situation against him, using her training and legendary composure. Night was falling on Riverton, and Samantha Carter, despite the injustice of the moment, knew she would not be intimidated. This arrest was only the beginning of a much bigger confrontation. The police car slid across the wet asphalt to the Riverton Central Station. Samantha Carter remained silent, her hands resting on her knees, her gaze fixed on the horizon through the window. She watched Mitchell's every move, noted every detail, aware that every piece of information might be useful to her later. Mitchell, for his part, spoke loudly into the radio, exaggerating the seriousness of the case. "I'm bringing in a suspect for armed robbery. Yes, she's resisting, barely cooperating." Samantha sighed inwardly. Even though the situation was unfair, she knew that losing her composure would only reinforce Mitchell's false narrative. Every second was a test of patience, an exercise in mental discipline inherited from her years as a Navy SEAL. At the station, she was led into a small, cold, and bare interrogation room. Mitchell entered a few minutes later, a satisfied smile on his face. "So, Miss Carter, you have a lot to explain. These accusations are serious. Why should I believe you?" he said, trying to impose his authority. Samantha, sitting with an upright and relaxed posture, calmly replied, "I didn't do anything wrong. I work for a civilian military program and I just finished my day. You can check my identity and background." Mitchell shook his head contemptuously. "I highly doubt that's true. You're lying. And I'm going to make sure the court believes you." Samantha showed no reaction. She knew Mitchell's arrogance would be his weakness. She began to think about her strategy: document every lie, every exaggeration, prepare the presentation of his military credentials, and ensure the truth would come out in court. Meanwhile, the station's surveillance cameras and microphones recorded every interaction. Samantha, aware of this, mentally noted every detail. She knew that one day, this evidence could vindicate her and expose Mitchell's deception. As night drew on, the heavy silence of the interrogation room was broken only by the buzzing of fluorescent lights. Samantha, despite the blatant injustice, showed no fear. She knew her strength lay not in physical confrontation, but in her patience, strategy, and ability to remain in control of her emotions. That night, at the Riverton police station, a silent battle began. A battle in which Samantha's truth, honor, and military discipline would be her most powerful weapons. The next morning, the Riverton courthouse was packed. Curious residents had gathered to watch the hearing, drawn by the unusual arrest of Samantha Carter. Officer Mitchell, confident, walked forward like a man sure of victory. He was already thinking about how he would present this suspect as guilty. Samantha entered the courtroom calmly, dressed in a simple but elegant manner, her gait straight and confident. Every glance she received seemed weighty, but she showed no emotion. She sat down opposite Judge Harold Benson, a man in his 50s known for his rigor but sometimes swayed by convincing stories. Mitchell stood up and began his testimony, exaggerating every detail. "Your Honor, this woman was seen near a robbery in our neighborhood. She resisted the stop, and her behavior was suspicious from the start. We have witnesses, and I can assure you that her explanations are inconsistent." Samantha listened silently. The lies flowed, each word calculated to paint a false and misleading picture. She knew this wasn't just a single lie. Mitchell was trying to construct a complete narrative to discredit her. When the judge asked Samantha to explain, she remained calm and collected. "Your Honor, I have committed no crime. I come from a civilian military program, and I have completed my shift. I am prepared to provide any evidence necessary to confirm my identity and integrity." Mitchell interrupted, pressing the judge. "Your Honor, she is refusing to cooperate fully and is not providing immediate evidence. Her behavior suggests she is hiding something." The judge sighed, torn. He saw the tension in the room and Samantha's apparent sincerity, but he was swayed by Mitchell's confidence. Samantha understood that she needed to go beyond mere verbal testimony. She needed to prepare a more solid, documented, and irrefutable strategy. As she left the courtroom, she thought quickly. She needed to gather official proof of her military service, letters of recommendation, and possibly contact her former SEAL colleagues to testify on her behalf. Every lie Mitchell told needed to be documented and countered with specific facts. This hearing was a warning. The court was not yet won. But Samantha knew she had one crucial advantage: truth and discipline. And soon, she would turn every lie Mitchell told against him. After the hearing, Samantha Carter left the courtroom without showing the slightest sign of frustration. Every step she took was calculated, every breath controlled. The Navy SEALs had taught her to remain calm in the face of adversity and to turn every obstacle into a strategic opportunity. That training would now be applied to a very different battlefield, the Riverton courtroom. She settled into her simple but functional apartment, pulled out her computer, and began compiling a list of the evidence she would need to counter Mitchell. She knew that her words alone wouldn't be enough. She needed irrefutable evidence, official documents, and credible witnesses. Step 1: Military documents. Samantha quickly contacted a former superior, Captain Mark Reynolds, who confirmed her exemplary career in the Navy SEALs and her high-risk missions. She gathered her medals, letters of recommendation, and official military certificates. Each document was carefully scanned and prepared for presentation in court. Step 2. Mental preparation. Samantha reviewed the communication strategies she'd learned on assignment, staying calm, speaking with authority, anticipating attacks, and responding precisely. She rehearsed her speeches aloud, simulating Mitchell's and the judge's questions. She knew her posture and voice would be as important as her evidence. Step 3. The Witness Network. Samantha contacted a few of her former SEAL comrades, who agreed to testify on her behalf. Their testimony would prove not only her identity but also her integrity and exceptional discipline. Step 4. Documenting every lie Mitchell told. Samantha had taken care to mentally and, where possible, physically record every exaggeration and contradiction in the officer's story. These elements would be crucial in proving that the officer had fabricated his accusations. Finally, she took a moment to meditate and visualize the courtroom. She imagined every scene, every possible reaction, every question the judge might ask. This visualization was a technique she once used before risky missions, knowing the terrain, anticipating obstacles, staying in control of her emotions. At midnight, Samantha closed her files, certain of one thing: the court would soon discover that Mitchell's lie held no water in the face of a structured, documented, and unassailable truth. This wasn't just a battle for her freedom, it was a demonstration of courage, discipline, and justice. The night passed, silent and observant, as Samantha Carter prepared to turn every lie against the one who had thought he could discredit her. Soon, the court would witness the strength of a black woman no one would have dared underestimate. On the morning of the decisive hearing, the Riverton courthouse was filled with whispers and curious glances. Local reporters had learned the story, and some had come to film the scene. Samantha Carter walked calmly into the room, dressed in a simple but impeccable outfit, her demeanor exuding quiet confidence. Every step echoed in the silence that had fallen upon her arrival. Officer Daniel Mitchell was already there, sporting a cocky smile. He believed his version of events would be enough to discredit Samantha. But he didn't know she was about to reveal a truth that would put him in an impossible position. Judge Harold Benson opened the hearing. We will now proceed to examine the evidence and testimony regarding Miss Carter's arrest. Officer Mitchell, you may proceed. Mitchell stood up confidently and resumed his exaggerated story. Your Honor, this woman resisted arrest, her behavior was suspicious, and we have several witnesses who testify that she fit the description of a thief. Samantha listened, motionless but attentive. Every word Mitchell spoke would soon be turned against him. When it was her turn, she stood calmly, placed her documents on the judge's desk, and spoke in a clear, confident voice. Your Honor, allow me to clarify the situation. My name is Samantha Carter. I am a high-ranking Navy SEAL officer, decorated for multiple high-risk missions around the world. Here are my official documents and letters of recommendation from my superiors, confirming my identity and integrity. A stunned silence fell over the room. Journalists and spectators held their breath. Mitchell blinked, unsettled. This can't be true, he stammered, but the judge interrupted him. Have a seat, officer. We'll examine these documents. Samantha continued calmly and precisely, detailing her duties, responsibilities, and commitment to discipline and ethics. Every word reinforced her credibility and exposed Mitchell's lies. The judge took the documents, examined them carefully, then looked Mitchell straight in the eye. It appears we are dealing with a serious error and false accusations. Officer Mitchell, you have exaggerated the facts and provided misleading information. Mitchell, visibly embarrassed, looked down. Samantha remained motionless, her gaze calm but penetrating. The truth had just struck with the force of discipline, preparation, and courage. This hearing marked a turning point. Samantha knew the battle wasn't over yet, but the truth had begun to triumph, and soon she would completely turn the tables on the one who had thought he could humiliate her. The silence in the courtroom was almost palpable. Samantha Carter, standing before Judge Harold Benson, placed her hands on the table and took a deep breath. She knew the decisive moment had arrived. Your Honor, it's time to clear up any confusion. I am a high-ranking officer in the Navy SEALs. I have served for over 15 years, participated in classified missions around the world, and have been decorated numerous times for my courage and leadership. She held out the official documents, certificates, medals, and letters of recommendation signed by her military superiors. The assembly bent over to examine each piece of evidence. Mitchell, pale, looked for an escape, but there was none. I also request that some of my former SEAL colleagues be heard, who can attest to my identity, discipline, and integrity, as well as the fact that I have never been involved in any criminal activity. The judge signaled to the bailiff, who ushered in 2 men in military uniform, visibly respected and impressive. Each confirmed, with seriousness and solemnity, Samantha's background and the veracity of her documents. Mitchell tried to speak again, stammering. Your Honor, but, that doesn't. The judge raised his hand, commanding silence. Enough. It is now clear that the accusations against Miss Carter were not only false, but based on lies. Officer Mitchell, your credibility is seriously compromised. Tensions rose in the room. The stunned spectators realized that the arrogant police officer had just been completely humiliated. Journalists pulled out their phones to record every detail, aware that they had just experienced a historic moment. Samantha, still calm, picked up her documents and said, I never doubted that one day the truth would come out. My only wish is that justice be done, and that such injustices never happen again. The judge nodded. It was clear that Mitchell's unjust arrest and lies would not stand up in court. That day, Samantha Carter wasn't just showing her strength, she was showing that truth, discipline, and courage could triumph over arrogance and lies. After Samantha Carter's revelation, the atmosphere in the courtroom changed dramatically. The murmurs turned into surprised whispers. Even the usually confident officer Daniel Mitchell seemed completely bewildered. Judge Harold Benson spoke in a firm voice. Officer Mitchell, it is clear that the accusations you made against Miss Carter were based on misinformation and lies. We will be opening an internal investigation into your conduct. Mitchell tried to defend himself. Your Honor, I really believed there was suspicious behavior. The judge cut him off sharply. Belief is not enough. Your actions led to the unjust arrest of a respected and decorated citizen, and you will be held accountable for this. Samantha remained calm, watching Mitchell with a mixture of determination and serenity. She knew that the justice process didn't end in this courtroom. The media, the community, and military authorities would now ensure that the incident was treated seriously. The prosecutor, present to supervise the veracity of the documents and testimonies, confirmed. All documents provided by Ms. Carter have been verified. Her identity and military background are beyond dispute. Agent Mitchell's accusations are therefore completely unfounded. The judge raised his hand, imposing silence and marking the final point. Miss Carter is acquitted of all charges. Officer Mitchell, your behavior will be reviewed and you may face severe disciplinary action. A murmur of relief and admiration rippled through the audience. The military witnesses nodded, confirming that Samantha had only defended her truth with the same discipline that had guided her on her missions. Mitchell left the room, his face flushed with shame and suppressed anger. He had been completely disarmed by the truth and Samantha's relentless preparation. What had begun as an unjust arrest was turning into a public lesson on the abuse of power and the need to respect the truth. Samantha, meanwhile, stood for a few moments, savoring the calm that followed the storm. She knew that the battle for her reputation and justice had just reached a crucial milestone, the truth had begun to triumph, and nothing and no one could make it back down. A few days after the hearing, Samantha Carter's life was returning to normal, but the repercussions of the case were beginning to be felt. Local and national media outlets had picked up on the story: a black woman, a decorated Navy SEAL, humiliated by a police officer who had lied in court. The news caused a real stir in the community. Samantha, true to form, displayed no arrogance. She knew that true revenge lay not in Mitchell's public humiliation, but in restoring justice and dignity. However, life had a way of restoring balance without apparent effort. An official letter arrived at the police station, an internal investigation into Mitchell had been opened, and his military and civilian superiors were reviewing his actions. The police hierarchy could not ignore the scandal, it was now documented and public. Potential sanctions ranged from suspension to dismissal, with possible legal consequences for defamation. Samantha, for her part, used her influence and network to obtain compensation for stress and humiliation. The sum, while symbolic for someone of her rank, sent a clear message: lies and abuse never go unpunished. In the community, Samantha became a symbol, a strong, disciplined black woman capable of standing up to arrogance and injustice with calm and intelligence. The young women and men who followed her in the media found her a source of inspiration. Mitchell, for his part, was seeing his reputation crumble. His colleagues were losing trust in him, his superiors were furious, and the people of Riverton no longer respected the officer who had believed he could abuse his power. Every attempt to regain lost credibility was met with the documented truth and Samantha's undeniable courage. Samantha, discreet but resolute, continued her missions and her military work. She didn't need to proclaim victory, her success and integrity spoke for themselves. Her revenge was complete, but it was gentle, measured, and exemplary, exactly as she had always been, effective and without unnecessary anger. Within weeks of the incident, Samantha Carter's story had spread throughout Riverton and beyond. National media outlets had highlighted her courage, discipline, and dignity in the face of Officer Mitchell's lies. On social media, hundreds of thousands of people commented, shared, and praised her composure and strength. Young women and men from the city, and even from other states, looked to Samantha as a role model. She embodied resistance to injustice, the importance of remaining calm and strategic in the face of adversity, and the power of truth when it is rigorously defended. Local schools invited Samantha to speak to the students. She told them about her journey, her time in the Navy SEALs, and most importantly, the lesson she had learned, that discipline, preparation, and courage could triumph over fear, prejudice, and lies. Even ordinary citizens, whether or not they witnessed his arrest, sent letters and messages of support, expressing their gratitude for showing that integrity and truth still matter, no matter the obstacles or injustices encountered. Mitchell, meanwhile, watched in silence as the story unfolded. Every article, every report, and every testimony served as a reminder of his mistake and his loss of credibility. The community, now aware of his abuses, refused to show him any respect. Samantha, however, wasn't happy about Mitchell's fall. Her inspiration came from something deeper, the possibility of transforming a traumatic experience into a positive example for others. She knew her story could help prevent further injustices and encourage victims to stand up for their truth with courage and strategy. Thus, Samantha Carter became much more than an acquitted woman, she became a living symbol of justice, strength, and resilience, proving that even in the face of fear and injustice, truth and discipline always triumph. A few months after the landmark hearing, Riverton had returned to a sense of calm, but the Samantha Carter case remained etched in the memory. Officer Daniel Mitchell, now under disciplinary investigation, had been suspended and was facing formal charges of defamation, abuse of power, and racial bias. His once promising career was in ruins. Samantha, for her part, returned to her military and civilian activities with her dignity intact. She was officially commended by her superiors for her courage and perseverance, and several local and national organizations invited her to share her experience as an example of leadership and integrity. In a quiet but symbolic ceremony, Samantha received special recognition for her resilience in the face of injustice and for standing up for her truth with discipline and intelligence. This recognition was not limited to her military career, it symbolized the victory of justice, patience, and truth over lies and arrogance. In the community, her story became an inspiring role model. Young women and men began to stand up for their rights, question abuses, and believe in the power of truth. Riverton now had a concrete example of what one person could accomplish when they combined courage, strategy, and determination. As for Mitchell, his fall was slow but relentless. His colleagues and superiors were losing all confidence in him, and public and media pressure forced the police to punish him severely. He had learned, too late, that truth always triumphs in the end and that blind arrogance cannot overcome courage and discipline. Samantha, for her part, walked the streets of Riverton with calm and confidence. Every glance she received was one of respect and admiration. She knew she had not only defended her reputation, but also shown the world that justice, truth, and integrity can never be crushed by lies. That day, in the city that had seen so much injustice, Samantha Carter became the living embodiment of justice over hatred and deception. And as she faded into the sunset, those who had doubted her finally understood that some truths are unshakable.